Hi guys, welcome back to What Is This Weapon? With me, Jonathan. You've seen me a few times by now. You know how this works. And this, I think this is a fun one because it's kind of really ordinary, but a bit different at the same time. So, it's a Heckler & Koch. You can tell, very distinctive design. Sheet metal receiver, roller delayed blowback operation. H&K call it roller locked. So that's just keeping that bolt in the barrel shut for as long as it needs to, using literally just a pair of very carefully, precisely engineered rollers. And then it pops open and does its thing. You know the drill. If you don't know the drill, there are better, longer videos explaining that. That's absolutely standard. MP5, G3, HK53, the 5.56 version of an MP5, and the HK33, the whole family of these weapons. So this is time frame 1980s, 1985. They've had the HK33 in production for the better part of a decade. And someone, for some reason, comes up with the idea of removing the iron sights entirely and permanently attaching what is a 1.5 power optical sight. So this is coming off the back of the Steyr AUG with its 1.5 power fixed sight. Doesn't give you any option to replace it with something better or more powerful or different. It just comes with the gun. So we're sufficiently advanced that we're trying to use optical sights as standard on firearms by this point, mid 80s. But it's not really flexible in the way that it is today, where we just put a rail on everything, and it negates the advantage that the H&K system had. You can see these lumps here and here on both sides. That's for the H&K claw mount, which lets you fit all sorts of different sights. So in some ways, maybe not a retrograde step, but at least with the claw mount, you could put an ACOG on it even if you wanted to. An EOTech, some modern optic, and people do that. Claw mount with a Picatinny rail, yes, it adds a bit of weight, a bit of height over bore, might need a cheek riser or something. So ironically, old-fashioned HKs are more modular, more useful, more practical than this thing. But comes from that period, late 70s to sort of late 80s, where we had the technology to deliver a low-power optic. And so some people were doing that. So H&K did that. Now, this is not an HK33. Actually, let's just show you what we mean by HK33. For those of you who haven't seen one before, it's 5.56 millimeter. These both are. And no mystery here. This is literally an HK33 with this optic and no iron sights. Kind of curious that they... Well, actually, is it that curious? I was thinking, why would you do away with the iconic H&K diopter round sight protector front post, which is replaceable for a different size if you need to do that, and then the drum rear where you have that open rear notch for quick acquisition, and then just your hundreds of meters, a smaller aperture each time you turn it. These are excellent iron sights. Basically, everyone says so. So it's a little bit of a head scratcher as to why getting toward the end of the useful life of the HK30. Well, in a way, it's its heyday, actually, mid-80s. Some countries were buying the HK33 rather than an AR-15 for reasons. Probably a familiarity with the G3, older older HK systems. So, 1985, HK introduces this new GR range. I actually don't have a note of what the GR1 was, but the GR2 is the HK53, but with a fixed optical sight. The GR3 is what you see in front of you. The GR6 is the HK13 machine gun, and the GR9 is the HK23. I have been sent some snaps from H&K USA. Thank you very much, of the brochure of the time for this GR series. I think it might even cover other variants than that. We only have the GR3. Ours is curious as well, because it doesn't have a coloured or camo finish. What the hallmark of the GR series as advertised was not black, and yet ours is. black. Don't know why. There is quite a bit of mystery around this. What was the impetus for this specific rifle? So as I say, it's an HK 33. Grind off the iron sights and stick on a 1.5 power optical sight. Just to show. So the difference here in the lower receiver, the trigger group, ignore that. That's just a progression over time. During the 1980s, they gradually swapped over. They were actually available at the same time for several years. This version with the ergonomic, with the finger bumps and the thumb ridge on this side, and this weird shape here, and the SEF markings. That continued for until I think at least the year 2000. But then in parallel to that, the HK 33 did get upgraded with exactly the same style of plastic, both plastic, but polymer, but with slicker sided and with a selector either side, so for either left or right-handed use, and with the pictograms. And certainly in this case, it's the no bullets, 1 bullet, 3-round burst, and then all the bullets. So it's a fully selectable fire control group, which I think was standard on the GR series. What the heck does GR stand for? Well, the official H&K book from Kirsten and Schmidt tells us that it stands for German Rifle, which I laughed out loud at when I read it in the book. Now, why would a German company call a weird spin-off of the HK 33 the GR3? I don't entirely know, but it seems that it was either there was an impetus from a foreign contract, and Peru has bought 200 of these. Maybe it was them, and or it was a marketing thing. Someone had a brainwave in the marketing department and decided to rebrand German Rifle instead of Heckler Koch. But they kept up the Heckler Koch names, HK 33, etc., in parallel. So this is where I'd like to briefly pause and remind you that we really do appreciate it if you subscribe to the channel. Liking is also good, but if you subscribe, that really does benefit us. We do know that there are a lot of people coming in and watching some of our videos without being subscribed, so we're reaching more people. That's great, but we want to keep them too, so please do like and subscribe. Thank you. So let's get rid of this HK 33. Before we do though, I actually would like to share with you a cool point about it. It's actually marked, although it's German proofed, it's marked EN33. Some of you are thinking, I think I know why. And you'll find MP5s with EN on the top of the receiver, and HK 33s if I remember rightly. That is an Enfield assembled HK 33. So this was a little bit of a wheeze where the German government was able to permit export of H&K firearms, not from Germany, via the UK. And that's as much as we're going to say about that one. So let's move that away. Let me just ram home the fact that this is, if that is a ground off casting or forging of the front standard HK front sight unit, they've done it really well. You can't really tell. Hard to say. Engineers, or production engineers, would you do it that way, or would you create a whole new item? Not really my area. And then we've just not welded on the sight unit to the receiver there. The sight itself is obviously the thing that's different. Let me show you the markings first, as I've just done that on the 33. So it is marked GR3. It has a serial number in the 3- range. Now, that style of serial number usually denotes a model, so presumably 3 stands for that specific GR3 model. Maybe for the whole range, but I suspect not. I haven't been able to lay hands or eyes on any others to confirm. The ones from Peru have a totally different marking system. Other examples are sanitized, effectively, of markings, don't tell you what they are or what the serial number is, which is interesting. I've also been told by somebody that would know that the actual impetus for this, or perhaps what they redirected it for, having already come up with it as a way to try to sell rifles and machine guns to someone else, don't know, But one of the reasons for this was for police marksmen. Another, this is very hazy, but either they came up with the idea of this fixed 1.5 power optic for their series of rifles for police marksmen, and then in parallel developed the GR series, or some permutation of that. I don't know. But at the time, the buzz was that HK had developed this to replace the iron sights specifically for police. Now, until the 90s, select fire lowers on a police firearm would not be uncommon. Equally, you could order it with whatever you like. So there may be a police marksman element to this, because more accurate fire at maybe 100 meters is basically what police marksmen do. The optic itself, it has this polymer housing. There is a sort of what appears to be a sighting groove in the top of the molding, but there's no way to use it as a sighting groove because this rubber protective end cap and this rubber eyepiece are taller than the groove. So there is no way to actually sight down the groove. However, if you bring it into the shoulder and look over the top of the sight, I suspect it's meant as a sort of shotgun rib style instinctive aiming tool to help you align, because you've got this thing in the way of the bore of the gun, as it were. That would give you a line to point at the enemy if you have to shoot over the top of the gun, because when you're in the sights, you have no situational awareness. Even if you open both eyes, it's not ideal. Partly why iron sights lasted for so long and why reflex sights for close range are so popular. Yeah, there's just a crosshair in here. I don't know if we can get in with the camera and show that. It might be tricky. It's a plain crosshair right in the middle of the field of view. No graduations, no aiming devices or aids in there at all. Now, it is adjustable. So there is an adjustment for windage by means of a tool. So right and left, that's the correction for left and right. So if your sight is misaligned, because it's never going to come out of the factory bang on, you have to test fire and zero the rifle, and you can then adjust left or right to compensate for point of aim versus point of impact with a tool. But this wheel at the front, if we look at it from this side, is actually marked. So just like that drum was marked in yellow, 100, 200, 300, 400 on the 33, that's this on 100 meters. Click to 2, 3, 4, and it's going to be impossible to show you in camera, as it were, but that will raise the reticle to bring the point of aim up, because you're effectively lofting your bullets in, even at that relatively close distance. Only a laser is as flat shooting as that. You still have to correct for holdover. Now, you can obviously do that manually by simply knowing where your bullets are going to go and aim over, but most sighting systems do include a way to adjust your sights, or a way to graduations to be able to hit, to lift your sights, lift your muzzle as well, to shoot accurately. So, yeah, interesting. So the actual body of we can't get into this to see exactly how it's attached, but there must be, interesting point. If anyone knows or can figure out how exactly this is attached to the top of the receiver, normally it would be seam welded on there, but clearly not. There is a casing over the top. I cannot immediately see how this would have attached. Once it's on there, you don't care. You're leaving it on there, and if it breaks, you send it back to HK. We are not going to risk prying at this to get under the polymer casing. There is a notch here that looks like it might allow removal. The manual does not cover disassembly. There would be a specific armourer's manual for disassembly. Disassembly of the rifle, it's not worth doing. It's exactly the same as everything else. The magazine works exactly the same way. You can get the nice big 40 rounders for these. And it's a sort of a combination of a rock and lock and an AR. You can essentially just insert, but you have to do it at an angle. And that's your magazine release. And that's your magazine release. This is all standard HK stuff. including the solid buttstock. If you're thinking, that's a different design to the HK 33, it's not. They changed over time. They've reverted to the earlier shape in order that the buttstock doesn't affect this eye cup. So it sort of is different, but only relative to this later style trigger group. So they've upgraded this to the current style. They've gone back in time a few years to the earlier, more streamlined style of buttstock, less robust, I think, in order to be able to accommodate this eye cup. So there are a couple of details like that, but otherwise it's a stock HK33. Why didn't they just call it HK33O for optical sight or something? I don't know. As I say, I think it's clearly a marketing thing, whether it involves police or foreign militaries or both. One last thing. I decided to dig out the manuals because we're very fortunate to have a GR3 manual, an original one, and the HK33, in this case, E manual, which was the export model, which is kind of what this is, but it's marked as an EN33. And if we turn to a random page, I mean, there's a good general description there, and you can actually see, although it's a black and white image, you can probably see that they are camouflage coloured. There's a sand colour, there's a forest camo pattern, and those have their own suffixes as well within this range. So that the general description differs. Well, no, sorry, the pictures differ, the name differs. And nowhere does it say German rifle. It just says automatic rifle, capitalized, GR3, caliber 5.56, blah, blah, blah. That is identical to the opening blurb in the HK33 manual, the automatic rifle, HK33E, caliber 5.56mm, blah, blah, blah. Absolutely the same. The images are, with the exception of the update of the trigger group and the buttstock shape, also the same. It's a different format of manual, so they are differently arranged on the page, but it's the same. They've recreated the exact same image, and the more modern HK33 manual would have the same photos. So, yeah, it's no different. The only difference comes with the 33 having a section on an optional optical sight using that claw mount that I mentioned. Only gives that style of optic, but others would have been available. And it explains how to use the iron sights as well. Whereas the inverse is true of the GR3 manual. They've removed the pages on the iron sights and inserted literally a page, I think. Let's find it. Here we are. So it's actually a double page, but only because there are images. So just inserted the instructions on how to zero the sight, because it's pretty easy to use. It doesn't tell you how to shoot with that reticle, but that's for a training manual rather than a user manual, which is what this is. So we're quite pleased to have this bit of archival or ephemera, whatever you want to call it, history to go with our single rifle, which is weirdly black and not camouflage coloured or sand coloured. A bit of a footnote in the HK's history, but I think an interesting one because it's a stepping stone between the iron-sighted rifles of yesteryear and today's rifles, where they often do come with no iron sights and the option to fit a sight of your choice. But with the GR3, you're stuck with this. Thanks so much for watching, everybody. We really do appreciate it. Do remember, if you're not already subscribed, hit the subscribe button. And of course, we always appreciate a like click as well. Goes a long way. And you can come and visit our real life museums if you'd like to do that. We also have, if you'd like to see these videos without advertisements, you can go to, or download the app, or go to the website, History of Weapons and War, and a lot of the other firearm and military history-based YouTube channels are also over there with something extra to offer you, whether that's no ads or even extra content in some cases as well. So please do go and check that out, see if it's something you'd like to sign up for. But you'll always be able to see the videos here for free, of course. See you again next time.